See you guys again. Kind of missed our weekly date of badgering me. But no, happy to be here. Again, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated what you guys have done all year. Our players really appreciate the coverage. I know our fans appreciate you guys getting information out to them, so I appreciate that. To start off, I'd like to send our prayers and condolences to our friends down at Western Kentucky in the southern region for the storms this past week. Obviously, tragic situation there, putting a lot of people in some very adverse situations. So our prayers are with those guys, that as many people as possible can continue to stay safe and rebuild. Also, big shout out to Cassidy's boss for allowing her to go to New Orleans and cover Marshall sports. So we appreciate that, and jokingly, but I understand the dynamic that we're all in, trying to find a way to create enough resources to do our jobs efficiently in the parameters that we're in. So we appreciate anyone that's able to kind of make some things work to continue to cover our program. So we appreciate it. And then thanks to the R&L Carrier Bowl committee and crew and group. We're excited about the opportunity to go down to New Orleans for a great historical bowl. This is a bowl that many people have been a part of. Many people that I've have relationship with have been a part of, and speak on how well this bowl is run and how great of a time not only our fans but our players will get to have. So we appreciate them and thank the conference and all the bowl committees who come together to decide who goes where. We really appreciate it. We're excited to go down to New Orleans, down to Bayou, back to Lance Guidry's stomping grounds, Corey McCoy's stomping grounds, and play a really good opponent, a phenomenal opponent. We kind of look at this as an opportunity to see, what our next steps, whenever that is, into a new conference is going to be. I spoke in the very first press conference about expectations. And I, more than anybody, like I said then, I want to win every game. But we got to bridge our expectations with the process. So we talked about it, back in January, almost a year ago, about closing the gap. Well, the gap has widened. So it's a positive because as we were closing the gap in Conference USA and making strides to continue to build our program through a process, I felt we made some big strides. Did we win every game? No. Did every play go the way we wanted to go? No. But from a program standpoint, from a culture standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, a development standpoint, we made some strides. Well, the gap has widened, and we're going to find out this weekend how wide that gap is, because we're playing a phenomenal opponent that has not only done a very good job this year, over the last 3 seasons have been very good. ULL is a really good program. I think Coach Napier, even though he's no longer there, I have a lot of respect for. We both kind of studied under the same master in different times. But you can see some of the things that we both have learned, our fingerprints and his fingerprints on his program. Coach Desimo, and I apologize if I've mispronounced that, but I know Coach is going to do a phenomenal job. He's been a part of the program for a very long time. He understands the culture. He understands the expectations. He understands how the inner workings work. So this is going to be a really good weekend for us. We're going to get an opportunity to spend some time together as a family one last time in a great city. And then we're going to get an opportunity to see where we are and see how wide the gap is and see what work we have to do. It's still going to come down to the same things. It's going to come down to executing. It's going to come down to playing consistent. I think they have probably one of the best out of the schools that we've played, front sevens. Very long, very physical, built very similar to how we're trying to build our program, with length and strength, athleticism. Their back end guys are extremely active on defense. Their skill guys are long on offense. Their quarterback is, I would say, probably one of the better players in the country for sure at his position. He's different than, some of the other quarterbacks that you may see that are ranked high, whatever it is. Totally different from the last quarterback we played, but creates a lot of issues, right? He can run, he can throw. He knows the system. I think they do a very good job coaching-wise of putting him in very advantageous situations so he can control the offense, make some plays with his feet, get out of the pocket, throw some balls down the field. And then their defense does a good job of just forcing you to go the distance of the field. They don't give up very many big plays. They tackle well. They knock back linemen. Their front probably is as good as we've played. I say that, every week, and then you play some guys and you kind of get a true gauge. But on film, these guys are good up front. So it's going to be a challenge. We are not backing down from the challenge, but we understand that we're walking into a situation where good is not going to be good enough when better is required. And better is going to be required on Saturday night. So with that, I'll open it up with questions.
Coach, kind of going off of that, in addition to everything you just said, solid team and all of that, they are a top 25 ranked opponent, and it's going to be kind of a home game for them. Does that kind of impact your guys' preparations, or how are you keeping you guys mentally focused with all of these, storylines heading into this?
Yeah, no, it's not going to impact our guys, but it should impact Herd Nation, because if we want to close the gap and we want to be who we want to be, then our stadium's got to look like the opponent's stadium. So if we're going to go into the Sun Belt, whenever that is, and we want to truly compete, we can't have our stadium look like an empty stadium. We're going to get embarrassed. No different than if we walk into the stadium and I don't have the team prepared to play. We're going to get embarrassed. I talked about it the very first day. We all got to pull the rope. And I have a big part. I'm not demeaning or belittling my part. But everybody's got a role. And I think we're going to get a real taste. Herd Nation, get ready. We're going to get a real taste of what it's going to be like moving forward into a really good conference, with really good fan participation, really good football players, really good coaches, really good culture, really good resources. We're going to get a real taste Saturday night, Cajun style.
And then also just playing in the Superdome too. I mean, for you as a head coach, how cool is that going to be for you, and then for these guys as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good environment. Sometimes, you really lose the nostalgia of, games because you're so worried about, the X's and O's and making sure everything's detailed and being consistent. But the reality of it is this is going to be the only time that some of these players get an opportunity to play in an NFL stadium. I know some guys did it in high school and state championships. Hopefully every single one of these guys gets an opportunity to play 50 years in the NFL. But the reality of it is it's probably not realistic, right? So we're going to do some things to kind of prepare ourselves for that environment, with our schedule and how we maneuver during the week. But at the end of the day, it's 100 yards long and 53 and a third wide. So we're going to have to get our eyes out of the Raptors real quick and make sure we're locked into what we need to be locked in on.
Coach, obviously, big week with the bowl games coming up, but also with National Signing Day, the early one coming on Wednesday. How do you go about splitting your focus between the two? Because obviously they're very important things that require a lot of focus from you.
Yeah, I think obviously, when you look at it from a bowl perspective, we've been able to maximize the time since the last game to now, right? With practice, preparation. Once we kind of figured out who our opponent would be, we kind of started a plan to maximize, preparation for the game. And then recruiting is something that you do every day anyway, right? It's kind of like brushing your teeth, right? You don't have to focus on brushing your teeth. You're probably thinking about what you got to do today, while you switch the toothbrush over to the left side, what are you going to do tonight, what are you going to do when you get to work? So recruiting for us is something that we consistently do. I think a big part of that is, again, get ready. We're getting ready to get into a real deal. A big part of handling those different areas of the program, resources. Right? So now if I got people who just solely focus on recruiting, it's a lot easier for the coaches to focus on football. So now when you start talking about how do you elevate your program or how do you continue to handle those distractions or split focus, like you're saying, you're focusing on your department does X, Y, and Z. Our department does X, Y, and Z. Now when we come together, everybody's got the details. Chuck Miguel ran around here for a long time, and he was the only person working in communications. You guys used to laugh when he missed a period. But in order for us to continue to get better in his department, we need resources. And I know I sound like a broken record, but it's real, okay? It's real. We all need to continue to close the gap, and it's gotten wider, so we got work to do. Not a boo-hoo, we don't want to play this game, and we're not going to be – Reality.
Coach, you talk about the gap getting wider. So are you viewing Saturday night as kind of like an entrance exam to the Sun Belt? Like, this is what Sun Belt football's like, and can we actually contend in the Sun Belt against a ranked team? Like, is this like the entrance exam game?
No, I don't know if it's an entrance exam. It's kind of the measuring stick of where you are. When we played some games in Conference USA against some opponents, we looked at some things and said, hey, where are we physically? Where are we from a program standpoint? Where are we from a resource standpoint? Where are we from a fan engagement standpoint? We measured all those things, right? And we felt like, we were in the upper tier of Conference USA. Could we have played better? Yeah. But you look at the games and you say, hey, a play here, a play there, you're different, right? Well, when you start moving conferences, you got to look at everything in the program now, because you got to look at what does their resources look like, what do their academic support look like, what does their medical situation look like, what is their training situation, what is their nutrition situation, how many student interns do they have in the building, how many academic counselors do they have, all of those things. On top of that, okay, what type of players are they able to recruit and attract? Are they able to recruit and attract a bigger, faster, stronger player? How do we compare with our recruiting? I think we've done a really good job thus far. Wednesday will be a huge tell in recruiting aggressively to build our program a certain way, which to me will help us in this transition. But it's kind of okay, hey, this is where we are. I wouldn't say an entrance exam. It's more of a measuring, because you're getting the best team in the conference, right? They're on paper, no disrespect to any other team in the Sun Belt, they're the best, right? 11-1 record, phenomenal on-field performance. It's not like they're winning games, on last-minute Hail Marys. I mean, they're doing a really good job of consistency. And over the last 3 years, right, they've been ultra consistent. So you're going to get a chance to see, hey, where has the gap widened? Where can we close it faster? What's going to take a little longer?
Coach, you had mentioned a couple of minutes ago about mental focus. The fact that the timing of this game, it's only just a handful of weeks after Western Kentucky. Do you feel that plays a factor into it, as opposed to, if you would have had a longer layoff had the game been closer to Christmas or New Year's?
No, I mean, to me, if you're not playing in the playoffs, you wanna stay in rhythm, right? It's kind of, the longer you get off, the more you got to manage. How much time do you give players off? How much time do you practice them? You can't really focus on a team for too long, because all of a sudden you kind of get into a comfort zone, right? So I think it actually helps. Different situation if you got some injuries that you're trying to get healed up. We're lucky enough to be in a good spot from that perspective. But I think the more you can stay in rhythm, you got to think about it. For the last 13 weeks, these guys have been play on Saturday, day off, right back at it on Monday. Play on Saturday, day off, right back at it on Monday, barring the couple midweek games we had. So I think the more you can stay in rhythm, the better chance you get. Obviously, the longer time you have, when you separate your last game from your bowl game, you can do a little bit more development with the younger guys, because you get to steal some practices. But I think staying in rhythm helps you play more consistent than having a long layoff.
Coach, last year, go ahead.
Okay.
Coach, I got next.
Yeah. What?
That's it. I got next. Go ahead.
Question.
Okay, sounds good. Jim's next, everybody. No, we had a chance to talk to Grant a little bit ago. He said he was feeling pretty good. So just how have you seen him, coming off of the injury? Are you pretty confident that he'll be able to execute pretty efficiently on Saturday, or where's he's, at right now?
Yeah, based on the medical team's assessment, he's good to go. I'm the one thing I am not, although when you go to head coach school, you get a lot of degrees. I am not a doctor. So when they tell me he's good, I take their word for it. When they tell me a guy can't go, we take their word for it. But they've told us he's good. He's looked good in practice. He's preparing, at a really high rate. He's preparing with a lot of confidence. So we feel good about it.
Coach, last year these guys couldn't really maximize what a bowl is. They pretty much flew down, practiced, played, and flew back on Christmas. Are they bouncing off the walls to take in every ounce of New Orleans and a bowl and a Superdome? And I can imagine they're just thrilled to get one more game down there and to be in a great city.
Yeah, I think, a little bit like all of us, right? We kind of take, everyday life and what we do for granted. And I think last year was a really good reminder of how valuable that, each day is, even all the way down to a bowl game. And our guys are, ultra excited, one, to keep this family together, right? This is the last time that this family, this team, regardless of what happens, this team will never be the same, right? We're going to have some seniors move on. It's going to change. But this is the last time that this team gets to play together. Outcome, like you said, off of last year's, not really having a bowl experience, it creates a little bit of gratitude. Our guys are ultra appreciative of this opportunity. I think a little bit, like you said, because of last year's setback. But I think this is going to be a great weekend for our guys, a great week. They're excited. I don't know if any of them have been to New Orleans before. I know everybody's asking Corey McCoy where to go eat and what to do. But it's been good. It's really been good to see their excitement, to see their preparation. And they also understand that we're not just going down there to hang out in the Big Easy, right? We're going down there to compete at a very high level and maximize our opportunity to finish this season the way we wanted to finish it.
Coach, looking at Louisiana, and I mean, obviously their defense really stands out, but looking at their offense a little bit, starts with the quarterback. I mean, he's a kid that keeps plays alive. And talk about your defensive front. It seems like when they've been asked to contain a guy who's a scrambler, they've done a really good job of working well together to get that accomplished, and also speak to the balance that Louisiana brings. I mean, whether it's rushing, passing, or you look at the receivers. I mean, it seems like they stay completely balanced. Yeah,
well, I think, like you said, I think it starts with the quarterback, right? Because you got to make sure that from a rush lane perspective, that you're able to cage the guy. Because if he gets out on the pocket, now he becomes a dual threat. He could run or throw. So now do you come out of coverage or you stay in coverage? I think the other part of it is he helps their run game because of the quarterback read stuff that he can do. I mean, this guy can pull it and go to distance. So he forces you to be extremely disciplined, on defense. So you don't always get extra hats to the ball. So now the one hat that's responsible for that gap has got to do a good job of getting the guy on the ground, playing with good leverage, bending his knees, striking out of his hips, right? So now the guy who got the quarterback has got to defend a really, really good football player in space if he pulls it. So I think what it does is it creates and thins out your defense to where every player has to master his individual role. It's not one of these deals where, hey, look, we know the quarterback's probably not going to pull it because of his athletic ability. We can kind of all play the run a little bit, and if he does pull it and he gets around the corner and gets 6, we live with that. Well, this one you can't do that because if he does pull it, he could go 66. So I think that's what helps him create a little bit of balance. He forces you to play the run loose. He forces you to play the pass a little bit loose. And then on top of that, I think he's got a good continuity with his receivers. When he goes into scramble mode, they know how to get into scramble drill rules, and they know how to kind of bend some routes off, come back to the ball, which creates some opportunities. Some guys, break it off and go deep, which creates some opportunities for him to hit big plays.
Keeping with the same theme, obviously, with Sam's injury, have you all gotten any clarity on Owen's status as far as the contest? Is he going to miss the first half, or has that been rectified? Defensive end obviously going to be an important position in this one coming up.
Yeah, we have not. We're waiting on information from the top down before we know. We're preparing as if not, and like you said, again, we're in a situation where you start running out of bodies, right? I mean, we got a lot of football players, but only so many of them are ready to play right now. So it's going to put us in a little bit of a bind if things don't work out our way. But, just like any other thing, you got to adapt. And the next guy's going to have to step up. I think if we learned anything from the last football game, the next guy's got to be ready to step up, and then the people around him got to play a little bit better.
Coach, I apologize for hitting you with all the hard questions here, but we got the chance to talk to Grant Wells earlier. What do you think about that mustache?
Yeah, so he's got a little crew. It's like a cult. It's him, Garrett Morrell, Omer, and Millette, and they're kind of like a married family that argue every day but love each other. So I'm assuming someone in that little cult either dared him to do it or said if you don't do it, you're soft or something. He said, I'm going to do it, or he lost a bet. I'm going with one of those. Somebody in that group probably initiated the stash.
What do you think, though? You think it looks good?
No. Horrible. And you know what? If you ask Luke Zaban, he would say probably absolutely horrible is what he would say. If that makes him throw the ball with a little more consistency, hit some more shots, I'll do the same thing, whatever it takes.
Coach, when you look at Rasheen Ali and where he's come from in August, you said he was completely raw, didn't know how good he could be. But where did his biggest progress come this season in your eyes and your coaching staff's eyes as he made that journey and became the team's MVP?
Understanding the full, everything that's going on around him. Understanding what the O-line's trying to do, understanding what the receivers are doing. Probably when we started, when we called a play, he knew exactly what he was supposed to do. There's words in the play that he had no clue what they meant or who was doing what. Probably back in August, and now he's kind of like, okay, hey, this receiver is doing this. Oh, that means this guy's coming across here. That means this guy's going to block this guy. So now it's starting to make a little bit more sense to him from a holistic perspective. And once you start to do that and you understand what everybody else is around you is doing, you can start to manipulate the defense because you know where guys' eyes should go, where flow should go, where O-line flow should go, so you kind of understand linebacker flow and D-line flow. When you're just running the play because it says the ball goes to me, you're running on pure athletic ability, which he has a lot of. But I think what you're starting to see now is he's starting to understand a little bit more of what's going on around him. If you ask him, he'd probably say his tempo is starting to slow down. When your tempo slows down, that means the game is slowing down to you. You see a lot more. You understand a lot more. And I think that's probably the biggest area.
When you look at some of his runs, and like you mentioned, it seemed like he might have been running ahead of blocks and not letting them develop early in the year. Do you see guys' eyes start to get wide whenever they start to slow down and see some of those running lanes that maybe they didn't see early on?
Yeah, what you see is their response is more clear. Like, well, why did you do that? Well, I thought he was going to do this. Not, I don't know, or I don't understand. Their response is more clear. So now, when you're teaching and the response is clear, you're able to teach him better because he can reiterate or he can say what he was seeing. So now you can correct it or add to it. When you say, well, why'd you do that? And he says, do what? Or I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard place to start correcting. It's like, okay, well, first of all, we're at football practice. You just ran a play to the right. So it's a little bit different now when he can start to say, well, hey, I saw the linebacker coming over the top, so I was going to go back door. Okay, great, but you can't go back door because the safety's fitting there. We don't have any guy to block that. So now you can kind of help him understand a little bit more, paint the picture a little more clear because he can tell you what he was seeing and why he did some things. Hey, Paul, I love the Christmas tree in the back right there. I actually thought it was a backdrop, but it's actually a real Christmas tree in a cubicle, which is phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
Here, look, I'll put it in high def for you. So
Oh, look at that. Cabinet and everything.
Yeah.
That's very nice. That's very nice.
Pledge of allegiance.
Coach, obviously you've been a ton of places with the game of football. How many times have you been to New Orleans, and do you have a favorite memory if you've been there?
Yeah, we went down to, well, it wouldn't be New Orleans. We went to LSU, and Devontae Smith put on a show during the last time we were down there. I remember that. I also remember 2 years before that, we went there at Mississippi State, and every player on LSU's team put on a show. So I've had the highs and the lows of good old New Orleans and football. So hopefully this one ends up somewhere in the middle with a lot more consistency and a lot more efficiency. But obviously, the city of New Orleans, we all know is historical for not only football in the South, but, the traditions, the food, the sights, the pageantry, the history of this city. Anybody can go down there and have a good time, whether you love football, haven't watched it in years, or rooting for the Herd, rooting for the Cajuns, Raging Cajuns, whatever it may be. So we're excited. We're excited. You know, I think it's one of the better bowls that we had an opportunity to get in, and we're excited to play in it. All right. Well, again, I appreciate you guys. I don't know when we'll see each other again, but thank you guys for all you've done. Look forward to seeing you all down there in New Orleans. Hope everybody travels safe, and go Herd.
Thank you, Coach.